My name is Cheryl Smith. I am a professor of English and the interim associate dean of the Weissman School of Arts and Sciences. I started here in September of 2003, so I am in my 21st year at Baruch College. And this was my first tenure track job. I had a full-time, kind of a postdoc teaching appointment for 2 years after I finished my doctorate at Harvard, and I was looking for a full-time tenure track job. I was looking for a job in New York City because I thought it would be great to live in New York City, and I really wanted to go into a public institution. So Baruch College seemed like the perfect fit for me, and it really has turned out to be the perfect place for me to live and to teach and to develop as a professional. I went through public education all the way up to college. I did go to a private liberal arts college, and I felt really inclined to return to public education, to feel, I've always loved teaching, and I wanted to go to a place where teaching just mattered. It mattered as much as research, and I'm not sure, I didn't quite always feel at home. I loved working at Harvard, and it felt like an incredible privilege to be there. I'm a first-generation college student in my family, so Harvard, I think, felt like this pinnacle place, this unattainable place. But while I was there, thinking about what the next steps would be, and I did interview at some private institutions when I was looking for my tenure track job, but I just wanted to be in an institution where I was, part of the movement to provide access to higher education to as many people as possible. I'm really committed to that, and I didn't want to be in an exclusive setting. I wanted to be in an inclusive setting. Interim just means that it's not a permanent position yet, so it could become a permanent position, but the permanent associate dean left, and the dean was looking to fill his position and had decided to do it at an interim level and to decide how to frame the position for a permanent position later. And it worked out for me too, because it was an opportunity for me to try it out and to see what it's like. So the associate dean supports the dean in everything. So any kind of special project that the dean wants me to work on, we talk about it and we develop it, and then I work on it on her behalf. But the associate dean's office kind of complements the dean's office in that the dean works directly with faculty and is in charge of the faculty at Weissman, and the associate dean's office is much more in charge of the student affairs side. So we look at, I chair the committee on academic standing, so any students who have academic issues go through that committee. Grade appeals, I handle all of those things, grade changes, the schedule, enrollment, curriculum. I'm on the curriculum committee, so the development of anything that is student facing in Weissman, that falls under the associate dean's office. And I think that it's a challenge to be associate dean and to be continuing to do my research, because being associate dean is really a full-time job. 9 to 5, so every day I'm on campus most days, and I'm working pretty steadily all day on projects and committees and in meetings. So it's difficult to carve out the time to do my research. I'm currently not teaching, so I'm taking a hiatus from teaching. I'm starting to miss it, so I think that I would really like to go back and teach a class. But it is difficult also to do that, to carve out that time. I have to be really cognizant of the times during the day when I could teach, because I have standing meetings that I can't miss. And I don't have things like, I'm not off in January between the semesters. I work all throughout the summer, so it's harder for me to find that time to do my research. So I'm struggling a little bit with that. That's a challenge, but this work really enhances the work I do as a faculty member, because I'm seeing a whole new side of the institution. So even though I've been here for so long, I'm getting to know more faculty across Weissman. I'm getting to know more about our majors, our minors. I'm getting to know more about the range of students that we have, not just the students that I used to always see in the English department, but all of the students in Weissman across all our majors. So for me, that really enhances the work that I do as a scholar because I'm writing about institutions and access to institutions and teaching across institutions and sort of the history of that at CUNY. So it's really enhanced my commitment to, but also my knowledge of the college. So the title of the book is Poetic Justice, and the subtitle is Poetry, Protest, and Democracy in Public Higher Education. I've been probably working on this book, not necessarily directly, but indirectly, almost a decade at this point. Since 2011, I've been, I just ended my tenure as a co-editor of the Journal of Basic Writing, which was launched at CUNY in the 1970s, kind of coming out of the open admissions movement. And the original editor and founder of that journal, Mina Shaughnessy, was teaching at City College, and through my connection to the journal, I learned about what was happening at City College in the 1960s and 70s. So I got really involved in researching the sort of founding of what is now called the SEEK program. Back in 1966, when it was founded at City College, it was called the Pre-Bac program, and this was part of a movement that eventually became the open admissions movement at CUNY. And my book looks at the poets who were hired to teach the many students that open admissions brought in. So enrollment at CUNY shot up over something like a 70% increase in enrollment in 1 year at CUNY after open admissions. Open admissions, CUNY had always been free up to that point, so it wasn't about making college free, but it was about making it more accessible to students from high schools that previously had not qualified, particularly for admission at the four-year colleges. So it changed the admissions kind of criteria so that more students from underrepresented high schools and neighborhoods could attend CUNY, could get into CUNY, and that hadn't been the case prior. And this was a result of basically the civil rights movement, civil rights activists, students up in Harlem, outside of where City College is located, demanding access to the college that was right in their neighborhoods. So it just exploded admissions across CUNY, and they had to hire a lot of faculty, and they hired basically radical feminists, civil rights activists, women who were on the verge of kind of launching what would become quite extraordinary careers as poets and writers. They were teaching these students at City College in the late 1960s and early 1970s. So women like Audre Lorde, Toni Cade Bambara, Adrienne Rich, and June Jordan are some of the poets who I write about. And they were just, badass. They were incredible, and we have archives with their teaching materials, but they also wrote about their experiences teaching here, and I'm inspired by them, and that's what led me to write this book, to think about the value of the poetic and poetry in not just in English classes, but in teaching in general, to kind of help human beings, not just students, but all humans, access language and emotion and everything that, the sort of the power of their voice. It's really interesting to me, and I think we are right now kind of in a similarly contentious moment that parallels in many ways to what was happening across college campuses in the late 1960s. It's different, but we have a similar kind of contest over what our democracy should look like. We have conflicting viewpoints on ideas of access, like who really belongs in the American society, but also in our institutions. So I think, and right now we also have kind of a real distrust of all kind of government organizations, that includes school, and the idea of should school be part of what we provide to citizens? Should school be, a democratic right? And I believe it should be. And so that's what I'm exploring in this book. And I'm thinking about what the poets were doing at City College in the late 1960s and what we could be doing today to be advocates for accessibility and inclusivity at our colleges. Oh, I learned so much about teaching and what I value in teaching and what how I connect or would like to connect with students through writing this book. One anecdote I have is that when Audre Lorde was hired to teach at City College, she started in 1968. She was hired right after the assassination of Dr. King, and she was a black woman who was born and raised in New York City and had been teaching in the South. She was a poet in residence at a historically black university in the South, Tougaloo College. She came back here and she didn't know what to do, and it was a very, very scary time. She describes it as being on the edge of chaos, and she said when she went into the classroom at City College and faced her students, most of whom were black and brown students, most of whom she identified with, she said she didn't know how to start. And she said the first thing she said to her students was, "I'm scared too." And I think that kind of just connection, vulnerability, openness, that we are all sort of in this enterprise together. I really don't believe in teaching like this sort of top-down, sage on the stage. Like, I don't think that my expertise and giving students my expertise is the only reason or even the primary reason for being in the classroom. It's about having transformative experiences, about learning together. And I think that leads me to do things like share my own work. If I ask students to read work or to workshop their work, I workshop my work with them as well. I think it's a shared enterprise, and I really learned that through writing this book and doing the research. It just reinforced the idea that kind of shared communal space, safe space where students feel cared for, and that when I ask them to do something and turn it into me, that they know that they're writing for someone who genuinely cares and genuinely wants to hear what they have to say above anything else. So I think, I love what the poets had to say. I love their poetry. I love their essays. I love what they write. I love how they talk about their experience at City College, and to be able to write scholarship about something that I feel emotionally connected to has been a real joy, and it has transformed my teaching. Yeah, I think that's a really good question. This is part of this current moment we're in, where people just distrust all sort of institutions, and this distrust of higher ed, that it's too expensive, that it's a waste of time, and that the only thing of value that comes out of higher ed is the diploma that will land you a job with a certain starting salary. And I think the liberal arts, we need to be better at sort of announcing, publicizing, getting the word out about the value of what we do. And I think that the main value that employers are telling us all the time is they want someone who knows how to think, who can pivot, who has flexibility, who can critically analyze a situation and make decisions about how to respond. And I think liberal arts gives you the tools to do that, right? Like if you're taking a philosophy class, any class, right? You're being asked to sort of look for answers and interpret what you see in a new and fresh way, put it in context, and imagine what are some of the applications of that information and your analysis of that information. So, it's beyond knowing how to do some of the more concrete things that you can get out of a college education, where you're learning, facts and numbers and the ability to sort of distill information. I think it's about application, and it's about being able to be a decision maker. And employers are always saying that they need students to be able to do that. They need people in the workforce who can do that. And I think the liberal arts provides that. It's a really it just provides a moment, sort of this extended moment, 4 years, 6 years, however long it takes, to develop sort of your kind of intellectual capacity to think, to respond, and more importantly, maybe above everything, to respond with empathy, right? To imagine the experiences of other people. I think you can see how this would be incredibly beneficial in a range of jobs, in marketing, in any kind of industry that you can imagine working in, that you can put yourself in the position of others and respond to them from a stance or a perspective of empathy. It's really valuable. Yeah, that's a great question. You know, we have amazing faculty. People come to this college because, like me, they're committed to higher education. They love to be in New York City. I think the English department here has a way of connecting out into the city and using the city as resources, which has been, you know, incredible. It's such a rich landscape and environment for exploring the literary arts, because here we are within walking distance of amazing libraries and other cultural arts institutions that faculty can use. We have really diverse faculty, so we have faculty who do sort of global studies, faculty who of course are specialists in different periods in English and American literature. We have linguists, we have rhetoricians, so we have translators. You know, it's amazing. So I think that our faculty is really, really diverse, and of course we have many writers, poets, fiction writers, non-fiction writers. So I think our faculty is large because the department serves so many students, because all students, you know, take writing and great works courses, but it's also just so vibrant and diverse, and I love that about the English department here. And very often we are left alone. One of the great things that during our office hours, right, because students don't come and see us, so I always do individual or small group conferences with students. Sometimes I'll do them, I'll steal a little bit of class time to do them, so I might use the last half hour to do that kind of work individually with students and have other students working on some project on their own while I'm meeting with some students. I've also found that Zoom is a great way to have office hours. The reality is students are really busy, so one of the great holdovers for me from when school shut down and everything was on Zoom, which was awful. I do not like teaching online at all, but I don't mind using Zoom to be more flexible with when I can meet with students. So I might not be willing to come into the office and meet with them on a Saturday, or meet with them in the evenings if I'm not here otherwise, but I'm happy to do that on Zoom. So there are always ways. So when students can make the office hours, I really encourage you to go out and reach out and make yourself known to your faculty. I mean, I think that it's probably the number one key to success in school, in my view, is to put yourself out there, take the risk, and make sure that all your professors know you personally. They know your face, they know your name, and they know that you're a presence in their class, and you're going to be a presence in their office hours and in other spaces as well. You know, email's great. Most faculty respond to email. Oh, after class is also fine. I have found that most students want to talk to you right after class, so I just always try to carve out time to be able to do that. Yeah, I mean, we do have our own sort of in-house magazine publication that students run called Refract. So students run that, and it has a faculty advisor, and they meet regularly, and they put out a publication, I think twice a year. I'm not sure what they're doing now. So that's one way to get involved. But there are also events for majors and minors. There are alumni panels on occasion. There are readings, so faculty and students will have a reading, and maybe 3 or 4 or 5 people, or maybe more, will read, and people can gather in the lounge downstairs in the English department, the 7th floor, to hear their faculty and fellow students read. So there are events like that, and we have in recent years made real efforts to reach out to alumni, to create an alumni network of English majors from Baruch. Our current chair, Tim Aubrey, started that, I think, when he was the deputy chair. I think our faculty are amazing, our students are amazing. We're right here in this amazing faculty who are truly, beautiful city, right in the middle of downtown. And